We finished off the last video by looking at properties, methods, and values on our objects. And in this lesson, I want to show you some new features that have arrived in ES 2015 that allow us to create object literal data structures in a much simpler way. So for example, we have these values here. We have the ID, we have the name, and we also have the 99, the price of our particular drink. Now what I want to do for a moment is just take each of these off, and we're going to separate them out into variables. So we'll say const my ID equals, and then that string. We can say const my name equals, and then lemonade. And finally we can say const my price equals 99. So then we can take each of these values, go ahead and add them in to our object literal. Don't forget to comma separate these values as well. So when we go ahead and save this, we won't see any change from here. Our variables have just been assigned to our object. So this is another way that we can pass property values onto a particular key inside our object. Now you can see here that we have key followed by value, key followed by value, and so on. Now, there's a nice syntax that was introduced in ES 2015, and this is called the shorthand syntax. So in the case where we want an ID, instead of saying my ID, my name, my price, we could go ahead and simply just delete all of these off, and then our variables look somewhat similar to here. We have ID and ID. Now what we can do is go ahead and lowercase each of these to match up the property names. And finally, we can do the values. So this is one way that we could do it, and we're only renaming the variables at this point. We're not seeing any immediate benefit. But the shorthand syntax means that if we want a property called ID and a value, which also exists under the same variable name, we can actually omit it and use a shorthand syntax. So what I can do is highlight these gaps, and we can delete the value if we want the key to be the same name as the variable we're using. So we end up with something a little bit cleaner like this. So it passes in ID, which creates the property called ID, and it also assigns it whatever the value is. And we can check this out, we can save this out, and you can see here that nothing in our object is changed. And you can see that when it's actually created, we see everything as it should be. So this is a nice shorthand syntax and a shorthand way of creating keys and also the values at the same time. Now there's also one more thing that we can do with this, and that is in fact create this property name completely dynamically as well. So instead of having our constant ID, constant name, constant price being the dictator of the name of the variable, what happens if we want the value to dictate what the object's key is called? Now we can in fact do exactly this, and this was again introduced in ES 2015. So we're going to say const, and we can call this some key. It might be that we get this through a function argument perhaps, and we want to dynamically populate part of an object. So at this point we could say that we want this to equal name. So here we've got name equals lemonade, and we have some key equals name. So where we have the actual string representation of what we want the key to be, we can in fact replace this and use a square bracket, almost like an object property key lookup, and we can just simply add some key in the middle. Now because we're doing this, we need to now supply a value, and in this case we can supply name from up here. So we'll save this out, and over in the browser we can expand our object, and everything is as it should be. So in this lesson, we have covered creating property names from variable names. We have ID, name, price. We had ID, we did use name, and we have price. And then we also learned that we can create property names from values as well, and not just variable names like above. We use the name key to dynamically create or reference an existing key, and then we simply assign it the value, and everything in our object works. Now this is an immediate thing that you can in fact start using. You'll see some opportunities as we continue through the course and in your JavaScript at work and beyond. And I think there's an underlying theme here that the new additions in ES 2015 are really making the language so much nicer, cleaner, and more maintainable to work with. So that's it for this video, and I will see you in the next one where we're going to talk about destructuring object properties.